Hi there. Welcome to a new episode of Branding with Friends, the show where branding meets key small business topics. Here, you're going to learn tips straight from the experts on everything from social media to writing a book to authentic marketing. We focus on what you can do right now to use these topics and the power of branding to attract your ideal clients. I'm your host, branding expert Annie Franceschi of Greatest Story Creative. I help small business owners tell their story and show their value through clear messaging and consistent branding. I'm also a former Disney storyteller, a professional speaker, and the author of the best-selling book, Permission to Try. And today I am really excited to introduce you to one of my new friends in the business world. If you're thinking of launching a podcast for your practice, you're going to love what we're talking about today. My guest today is the dynamic AdeOla Fadumiye. She is the owner of Crys Tiana, a podcast management support company. She's an online business manager with a special emphasis on podcast management. She has more than a decade of project management experience working with nonprofits, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. She's solution-oriented, forward-thinking, and strategic, and she believes in creating simplified and streamlined business systems and processes. She moonlights as a writer and editor. She writes at the intersection of faith, feminism, and entrepreneurship, and edits multicultural and Christian fiction. We've got a lot going on. Your work has appeared in Radiant Health, Big Cartel, and Matter Me. She is a 2017 Starting Block Fellow and the 2017 alumni of Thread at Yale University, their storytelling and modern media program. She currently lives in the Washington, D.C. metro area. AdeOla, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Oh, that's a lot about me.
You are multi-passionate, but many people who watch or listen to Branding with Friends are also multi-passionate. So they're going, yeah,
that's good.
Get all those passions out there. I'm so glad you're here to come talk to us about podcast hosting. So we have an episode about Branding with Friends. It's all about podcast guesting. This one is all about should you have a podcast and all of those pieces. So how did you get into this world of helping clients produce podcasts?
Oh my goodness, this journey started a decade ago, but I have a love for podcasts. I listen to podcasts when I'm running, when I'm cooking, when I'm laying on my bed, even when I'm reading, I'm listening to a podcast. So I've always loved podcasts, but my background is in public relations and marketing. And that's why I started out as a writer, a storyteller, and then over the years evolved into project management. And that led me down the path too. I want to produce podcasts. I want to be a producer. I want to strategize around getting stories out there. At the end of the day, I'm a storyteller, and podcasting is a storytelling platform. So I was figuring out how to merge my project management skills with my storytelling skills, and podcasting was where I landed.
Absolutely. And I think that's we're all storytellers in different ways. You know, I do brand storytelling, you do storytelling through helping people with podcasts, right? And I'm glad if you're watching or listening to Branding with Friends today, AdeOla is going to share 3 big tips if you are thinking about creating a podcast, things you want to keep in mind. So we're going to share those first 2 tips in our discussion today. Then AdeOla has a special gift for all of you. So if you listen, we will give you that as well. And then we're going to share that last tip for the end. So make sure to stay here for the whole episode so you don't miss a juicy tip. She's actually got 2 tips at the end this time. I know she's got a bonus tip for you. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's think about what is the first thing, if you're a coach or consultant or a service business owner, should you be considering before you start a podcast?
So the first thing I would say to consider would be having a clear direction, knowing your what, your who, and your why. Why are you doing this? Is this a marketing strategy to grow your business? Is it a marketing strategy to pull in clients? Are you is this a hobby? Is it a passion? But really having a clear direction of what you're doing, why are you doing it, and who you're speaking to, because you have to have intentionality around creating a podcast, because podcasting is a long-term game. It's not something you start today and see the gains. So I always say before you step into podcasting, whether you're a coach, a service provider, think about your why, and also think about who you're speaking to, because when you have a why that aligns with the who you're talking to, you end up growing an engaged following that sticks with you and loyal to you.
I think that's a really good point. And I think there are a lot of people who maybe come, to the table and say, well, I need to market myself, so I need to create a podcast, but maybe they haven't articulated their story yet, or they don't even know, they don't have a logo or fonts or colors. How much branding does a coach or consultant need before they embark on creating a podcast?
I would say enough to get you people attracted to you, because there's a lot of podcasts out there. And the first thing people see when they search the Apple or Spotify is the image. It's not the copy. It's really the image. So if you have an attractive image that draws people in, people move in really more into you. So I would say it's a good thing to know your colors, to know your font, to know your branding aesthetics and ethos, because you need that to make a logo. You need that to make the main podcast cover. So you need that. You need that. And if you're doing it for business, that needs to align with your business. So you're not creating, I'm not going to have Crys and Tiana podcast and have the color so different from my business if I'm speaking about podcasting. So I would say you need to have your colors and your branding together.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And it's something that, you guys should be picking up on when you watch Branding with Friends or listen to it, is that it's the consistency and the memorability. So if you want to tie a podcast back to you, a great way to do that is to have defined branding, like AdeOla is saying, like the colors and the font, so that people recognize it. Because if you put all this effort in creating a podcast, but then don't have a way for people to even visually remember it's connected to your business, that comes back to the why, right? So I want to dive a little deeper into that with us today and to talk a little bit about what is a good why. So like, give us an example or two. If somebody, when would it be the right time or a good reason to create a podcast for like, let's say a coach?
So I would actually, let me go back again to the issue of consistency, because when you have a why, your why keeps you consistent and committed. Because I know, like I said, podcasting is a long-term journey. So if you don't know your why and not committed to your why, you end up finding that it's a lot of work and you're like, I'm burnt out. So knowing your why is important. But another, a good reason, a good why for many business owners that I've worked with is having a message. You have a message that you want to pass across, whether it's practical tips, whether it's mindset issues you're trying to deal with your audience. You have a message, and that message is clear to you. And you also know the audience that needs that message. So it's really aligning the message. Your why is the message you have. You know you have a message and you want to share that message. And you know people need the message.
Yeah.
And the people gravitating towards the message. So it's easy. You can have a why that no one really cares about. But if it's a why that passes across to the audience, that makes sense. I want to listen because you're speaking to something that I want to hear, that people are asking for. And when you do produce a podcast, I always say you need to stay consistent to your why and your direction. But there's room to evolve. So you're listening to your audience. What are they asking for? You might start out one way and realize your audience down the line in a year and asking for something different that you can offer. Then you shift and you move and you evolve.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point and something to consider too. When I do branding, I don't just do the visuals. I also do the messaging, and having a message, I think is a critical part before I would advise any of my clients to start a podcast. Cause it's like, well, what are you trying to say? And like, I don't want to confuse like a purpose with a message, right? Like you clearly have a purpose, but if you haven't articulated that in a clear way that your ideal clients can receive, then that might be premature, right? So like,
or want to
get
receive
that story. Yeah. But I love right. And I love your point here, which is, podcasting is not podcasting into a vacuum. It's not a form of like most good marketing. It's system will benefit you. And I know you're going to talk about that, but also it's about listening. It's as much about talking about what you do as it is about listening to the response and engaging and, starting a podcast that's flexible enough to respond to what people are interested in. So I think that's a great point. Yeah. You had a second point that was here. So if somebody's created a podcast or is thinking about doing it, what should they be considering about kind of launching that podcast? What's the second thing we need to keep in mind?
So this I talk about a lot, and it's something that I do with my clients a lot. And it's this idea that no one knows where you are. You're not Brené Brown, you're not Oprah, you're not Beyonce. So none of us are, like, we don't have a million followers. So you can't expect to produce a podcast and put it out there and not talk about it, even prior to launching it. So I always tell my clients and people that are asking me about podcasting is make sure you have a launch strategy, your promotion strategy for the launch and everything after. If you want to do ongoing podcasting, you need to continue to market and promote. So I always say, it's important to have a promotion strategy. How do you promote? How do you gather your friends and families and business besties that have audiences that you're speaking to? How do you work with them to promote your launch? So that's, I can't emphasize that. Don't drop a podcast and expect people to come, because in the podcast world, it's still new, relatively new, but there's a lot out there, and people get lost in the sauce if you're not talking about it and talking about it
I love
often.
that phrase, lost in the sauce.
You get
There's a
lost in
good
the
one.
sauce.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about what you do, and you're in branding, for people to, you have to hear it over and over again for it to stick. So
Yes.
create a launch strategy and keep promoting and marketing your podcast.
I think one of the things that I run into a lot is people think that if they said it once or twice, they've said it way too much. And it's, Donald Miller has said, I think he pulled in some research and he said it takes 8 times, someone hearing something 8 times for them to remember it. And so, most of us were too busy to have seen your one post on social media about it. Like, you've got to keep reminding us, you got to show up. Most people, I think, have that problem versus they overshare. So I try to sort of encourage, do it a little bit more, share it a little bit more. Don't be obnoxious, right? But there's a balance to it. But I love it. It's all about sharing the story and making sure you don't get lost in the sauce. I love that phrase.
And I think that's why when salespeople call you all the time, they keep annoying, but they know they need to come to you 2, 3, 4, 5 times for you to buy. It's the same principle. It's the same principle. Yeah.
And this isn't really part of the tips, but I think I'm going to get this question. So I know that you can answer it, which is, in terms of technology, a lot of my clients and people I work with tend to struggle with technology and are maybe older, maybe struggle with like kind of being tech savvy. What are your favorite kind of apps and tools that help you create a podcast? Because I know there's things like Anchor and Buzzsprout and some of these other tools that have come out now that allow you to kind of more easily launch a podcast. So are there anything like that you actually recommend people use?
So I always say, this is a question I get a lot. I always say there's only 3 things you need to launch a podcast. You need a laptop, you need headphones, and you need a mic. A mic because you want good sound. Headphones or earphones because you don't want your sound to be echoing and bouncing off everything. And you need a laptop because Zoom is where we're recording stuff right now. So I would say if you have those 3, you can launch a podcast. But in terms of when it comes to editing, I always recommend Audacity. And that's a good tool if you want to edit yourself. But for me, I always recommend, if you can afford to, outsource your editing, because it saves you a lot of time, because you can work in your zone of genius and have someone do all the sound engineering stuff. But if you want to do editing yourself, then I say having great quality sound starts before you record. Microphone, headphones, making sure you're recording in a small room or even in your closet if you're recording at home. So making sure you're getting good sound before you get edited and have to figure out how to make things look better, if you can prevent that from the onset. So those are the things I would say. Many podcasts have started with that, and many successful profitable podcasts have started with just those 3 things.
Perfect. I think that's a great sort of like get going if you're going to do it, and ask experts to help you if you're not tech savvy. I think that is a great idea. I know you can help people through your business, which is wonderful. Yeah. We're going to save, AdeOla still has some great advice to share with us. We're going to save her last tip for the end. But before we do that, I know you have something really special for Branding with Friends. So what would you like to share with all of us?
Yes, so I'm sharing with you a 12-page, 12-step guide to launching your podcast. And in this guide, I hold nothing back. It walks you through everything you need from the beginning, starting with how to clarify your why, all the way down to the day you launch, and a promotion strategy. And you can, if you're thinking about launching, aspiring, or you're currently working on a launch plan, it's something I think would be amazing for you. No holds back. Everything is in there for you to launch and produce your podcast.
That sounds awesome. I feel like anybody who's kind of thinking about a podcast might want to check that out. And if you're not at that point where you're ready to launch, maybe you save it for later. So wherever you're watching or listening to this, we're going to make sure that the link to that is included. So make sure you follow the directions to get over there. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if this episode has gotten you thinking about branding, feeling like maybe you don't have consistent logos, fonts, and colors, or you don't have your message nailed down, you can always set private time to talk with me. So you can grab a free consultation with me at greateststorycreative.com. Just look for the big red button at the top. And thank you so much for being here, AdeOla. We've got two great tips already. You've talked to us about how important it is to have a really clear direction. I think everybody starts there. Almost all of our Branding with Friends experts have come in and said,
Really?
hey, have a strategy. Yeah. And it's something that I think I've started calling strategy the sexiest S. So thank you for reinforcing that many of us say we need to start with a really clear goal in mind and not all the things. Make sure we know why we're doing what we're doing. And then you've had this other great tip about really being intentional about your launch and not just assuming that people are going to know that you launched a podcast, right? Sort of building some energy around that. And you've got this great tool for us to learn more. So what were those last few tips? I know you had a third tip and then a bonus tip. So tell us the third tip and the bonus tip to encourage all of us if we're on this journey to podcasting.
Yeah. So the last tip is really the project manager in me. Because I also know that podcasting can be a lot of work. People suffer from podcast overwhelm. So I always say create a project plan or have a checklist, because the sweet spot with podcasting is for every episode, everything is replicable. You can duplicate what you do for one, for the most part for the other. If you're doing solo interview, you can duplicate. So I always say, create a project plan, get out of your head and put everything you need to do step by step on paper, so that when one is done, you know, I'm doing the same thing for the next one. And you're not in your own way trying to think about what am I supposed to be doing next. It's all laid out for you and you can just check until you're done. And part of having a project plan is the bonus is I recommend batch recording. If you take nothing else out of this conversation and you want to be a podcaster, you're trying to launch a podcast, lean into batch recording from the very beginning. That's how you record 4 episodes for the next month, a month before, because it would save you a lot of headache. It will save you a lot of time. So you can focus on editing and doing other little things that you need to do to upload and schedule and release and promote your podcast. So yeah.
I love it. I think that's actually like incredible advice that I'm going to pass on to you guys as ways to simplify your marketing. This is something I'm doing more and more for clients and through mentoring, is talking to you guys about how to simplify what you're doing so that you actually do it. You know, marketing can get so overwhelming, and I love to have you come on and talk about, if you're going to do a podcast, be smart about it. Have a system. There's nothing, you know, you're going to set yourself up for success if you can have a repeatable process. And if guess what, if you have a repeatable process, you can delegate it to your virtual assistant.
Outsource that.
Yes. So like, for example, Branding with Friends is currently a video series. It is hopefully in the future going to be a podcast. But I didn't have the time to learn how to do a podcast. I just wanted to get started. So I did. But I created an entire process for my email marketing. So you're watching this episode, but I'm happy to tell you that all I had to do was record this great episode and meet AdeOla. And then my virtual assistant is going to take care of everything else because she's amazing. She joyfully organizes me with Joyfully Organized. So there are ways to build marketing systems so that you can really do the things you like to do, like say record podcasts, but then maybe you outsource, you get some help from AdeOla's team. Maybe you get a sound engineer, maybe you get some folks to help you do it so that you can play to your zone of genius and things get done consistently and you don't go to the podcast graveyard of your first 2 episodes and never do any others again.
The story of many of people that I've encountered in life is just doing 1, 2, 3. I'm like, this is a lot of work. Well, because you didn't plan, and planning saves lives. System saves lives. Batch recording saves lives. I say that a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a quote that's like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Yeah. And I found it to be true in my career that the more effort I put into the planning of something, the better it goes, significantly, even down to college. Like if I had an outline, I was pretty much guaranteed to have a B, like at least a B, right? So let's all shoot for at least a B. Let's put in some planning time. Trust us on this. You know, if you look at the people that you admire that are doing really well, that are 6-figure and 7-figure entrepreneurs, they have systems and they delegate. And if you don't know how to do those things, we can connect you. So just let us know. All of AdeOla's contact information is going to be here. Of course, don't forget to check out her amazing 12-step process for launching your dream podcast. AdeOla, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys will check her out. And thank you guys again for joining us for Branding with Friends. That's another episode in the books. I hope you will tune in next time when we're going to tackle yet another topic where branding meets business. Until then, I'm Annie Franceschi with Greatest Story Creative. You can find all our episodes, branding resources, and even hop on my calendar at our website, greateststorycreative.com. Stay awesome.